Welcome to this week's episode of Straight Talk with Europe C. Morgan. We got a lot of stuff to get into, including why I have to go to Barnes & Noble after the show and get a new book. And it's not my usual kind of book. This is one that is written by Jake Tapper, CNN news anchor. And I gotta get the title of this book because it just says everything. It's called Original Sin: President Biden's Decline, Its Cover-Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again. That's wonderful. Okay. Well, listen, I am not one to rehash old arguments, unless it's COVID. I will rehash that any day of the week. But the 2024 election and the gaslighting that we all experienced when we were told that Biden was fine, it's totally normal for people to wander off, and have Secret Service basically herd them around. Like, this guy is sharp. What Governor Westmore in Maryland, like, this sharpest I've ever seen him. Like, he's fantastic. And meanwhile, we're all sitting here like, am I crazy? Am I the crazy one? Because I'm watching this man literally wander off the stage. There was one Easter where the Easter Bunny, remember, at the White House had to guide him. And listen, I understand, he was an older gentleman, but I come at this as a normal flippin' human being, okay? Like, I got two eyes in my head. I can see what's going on. But also, I'm an attorney. I do a lot of estate law. I do a lot of probate and wills and things like that. If Joe Biden had come into my office, I wouldn't have allowed him to sign a power of attorney. All right. That's how lacking he was in his cognitive abilities. And yet we were being told at the time, it's fine. He's great. You know what? You are ageist. And I'm like, I feel like this is elder abuse. This man should be on a beach somewhere taking a nap, not making foreign policy. And then his decision to not step down until the very last minute. If you're upset that President Trump is in office, be upset with the Democrats who allowed him to string along the party until the very last second, to where they really didn't have much of an option except to shoo in, the only available person, Kamala Harris. And as it turns out, nobody liked her when she ran the first time, and they certainly didn't like her when she was shoved upon us. So I am fascinated to read this book, but what's also fascinating is the denial. The denial that keeps, especially for the ladies on The View. So I want you to listen to this clip. This is Joy Behar discussing this issue on The View.
Here, just so we know, like, this table spends a lot of time criticizing Donald Trump, and a lot of it is very valid and needs to happen. But it is a fact his approval rating is 39%. It's
higher than the Democratic Party.
However, Democrats is 27%. People felt gaslit and lied to. In 2023,
the low ratings for the Democrats, I think, partly, I may be making this up, is because they haven't fought hard enough, what she's talking about.
That may be part of it.
Not because they're so angry with the Democrats for being bad.
That's okay. So the first person you heard there was Alyssa Farah, and I thought she made a brilliant point. Okay, so Trump's numbers are bad. Guess whose numbers are worse? The Democratic Party's. So again, maybe this is an indictment on all of us. That, like, we're talking about numbers in the 40s as being like, hey, but I'm not as bad as you. But she's right in saying that the Democratic parties are lower than Trump. So you want to understand why Donald Trump got elected. In some cases, like, for some people, yes, there are his diehard fans, but we're not talking about those. We're talking about everyone else in the middle who's like, yeah, I don't like you, but I like them a lot less. And therefore, you kind of go with the devil as opposed to the one that you don't. Like, I don't like you, but I hate them, so therefore I'm going to do this. And that explains a lot. But for me, it's people like Joy Behar who... Okay, so maybe she is correct in the sense that for some Democrats, maybe that has to do with the unpopularity of the Democratic Party with some Democrats, right? Maybe they don't like that they don't feel that the party is pushing enough. And I'm talking about your progressives, like your David Hoggs and your AOCs and your Bernie Sanders. And guess what? You will never appease them. They are like a black hole, okay? Nothing that you ever do will ever make them happy. So I'm not surprised that they don't like you. They're going to always want you to push more. What does the general American person want? I don't think that it's, keep fighting against this guy. I think it is give us better options. Give us better responses. And instead of this whole mentality that's just like, no, we want to keep fighting, it reminds me of, very much like in the 90s, the whole kind of Bible thumper mentality was really big. And it reminds me of like the people who are like, yeah, well, maybe, I just need to actually physically hit you over the head with the Bible to get you to come to church with me. Like, okay, yeah, that's going to work. No, it didn't work then. It's not going to work now. So the majority, I think, of Americans are not looking at the Democratic Party and saying, we want you to fight more. I mean, do you really think about what that felt like? We don't the whole women's march, remember, and they were wearing those hats, those little pink hats, or the people that are like screaming into the air, like no, we're not asking you to fight more. This guy got elected in record numbers. Trump got elected, right? Because people wanted him to be in office as opposed to Kamala Harris. But I want you to hear the next part about this, because Alyssa Farah goes on to actually explain, I think, the real issue with why so many people were frustrated with the Democratic Party.
77% of Americans in 2023 said Joe Biden was too old to run again. And they were told, sit down, shut up, he is the nominee. And then when it became untenable and he stepped aside, they anointed Kamala Harris. There was not a primary, there was not a democratic process. And then when she lost, they said, don't look backward, we're moving forward, we're not even going to talk about why we didn't listen to you. We had Joe Biden here last week. It was an honor to have him. I think he is a good man. I do not think he could have been president for 4 more years.
Who did? I just wanted you to hear that stat. So that was, again, Alyssa Farah, who's apparently the only voice of reason on The View. And 77% of Americans, y'all, that's a lot. That's more than most of us thought that Joe Biden was too old to be president. And again, it's not even an age thing, right? Because I don't know how Donald Trump is still standing. Apparently the man eats, fast food and drinks Diet Coke all day. And he looks like he could go play 18 rounds of golf. It's amazing to me, because there are days where I'm like, I could never. I need a nap. But he's still doing it, right? With Joe Biden, it was the fact that we could physically, with our own 2 eyes, see this man's mental and physical decline, right? Like I said, I'm an attorney. I've seen clients do this. I've had people bring in, their aging parent. Oh, I need them to sign this deed. And I'm like, where do you live? Like, what's your name? What year is it? And they struggle to even really comprehend where they're at. And I'm gonna lose my law license because you're trying to, take your parents' house. That's crazy. But there is a genuine concern when you start to see that lack of cognitive ability. But then you have, so as Alyssa Farah was saying there, for the American people, 77% of us saw this decline happening, and we were told he's fine, shut up, right? He's good. And we were being told that by people that you're supposed to trust. Now, I am not, I know this is not a fairy tale. I know that we get lied to all the time. I get it. But there is a part of me that still believes, and rightly so, right? I'm not giving up on this, but the media has a responsibility to tell people the truth. Yesterday, we had a massive storm here in my part of Maryland. The first thing I did was I turned on the TV because I wanted to watch the local news. I wanted to see the radar. We actually had somewhere we were supposed to be. And so my daughter was like, can we go when the storm is over? And I'm like, it looks like a monsoon outside. I need to see like how bad is it going to be and how long is it going to last? Because, like in certain parts of the country, Maryland, Texas are really big like that. If you don't like the weather, give it an hour. It could drastically change. And so I wanted to know if it was one of those situations. I turn on the news and I trust that the weatherman, if I see like actual physical lightning and a monsoon outside my door and the weatherman is telling me, go have a picnic, it's great. Okay, I don't believe you anymore, right? But so far, we still have some faith in at least some part of the news and some part of the media. And I believe that we should still hold our news anchors to that same standard. Now, I don't expect, they're human beings. I don't expect them to get rid of all their biases, right? But I do expect you to tell me at least the majority of the truth, okay? This man is wandering off stage. He doesn't remember people's names. And I'm being told he's fine. He's great. Leave it alone. That is crazy. And you could kind of hear, I don't know if you heard it in that clip, but there's a part where she says that, then we got Kamala Harris, and you can hear Joy Behar say, oh, that was a mistake, And then I think it was Sunny Hostin who at the very end was like, what do you mean that was a mistake? They're kind of whispering to each other, He's like, I didn't think that was a mistake. Like, okay, well, you're dumb. So there's that. But it was one of the first times that I've heard Joy Behar, because she represents, I think, a significant wing of the Democratic Party. And particularly those who have said that we were all sexist and racist because we didn't want to vote for Kamala Harris. And she's like, yeah, that was a mistake. Of course it was a mistake. Can you please stop calling us sexist and racist? All right, think about this. When she was running for president on her own merit, not as vice president, but before, right? When there was an actual primary, when they didn't anoint her, there was an actual primary. She dropped out before the first primary. You know why? Because she didn't get any support, not even from Democrats, okay? Democrats didn't like her. So you think that when you like swapped her for Joe Biden at the very last second, that all of a sudden people are going to be like, you know, that Kamala Harris, maybe I was wrong about her. I actually do like her. No. And then she goes on and says that she would do the exact same thing that Biden was doing. Like, let's just throw in the towel now. Like, you're not even trying, right? So I am going to go pick up this book because I am super curious about Jake Tapper, who was one of the people who was telling us that, you know, hey, look, it's all fine. I think he's great. I'm super curious to hear what he has to say and maybe some of the behind the scenes stuff about how everyone apparently knew that this guy was on the decline. Thanks for listening to Straight Talk with Europe C. Morgan. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and add this podcast on Spotify. If you're enjoying the show, consider subscribing to my Patreon to help keep the lights on around here. Just $5 goes a long way. Go to patreon.com/whymorganshow today. And don't forget to tell a friend. So think about this. You've lost a job. You've lost a football team. You've lost an amusement park, and now your credit score is on the decline. No, this is not your deadbeat neighbor. This is the state of Maryland. It has been a rough couple of weeks. So what am I talking about? Just in the last few months, we have lost the FBI headquarters. We've lost the Washington Commanders. I mean, I'm a Cowboys fan, but still, that's pretty bad. IonQ's quantum computing lab, not going to be here in Maryland. And Six Flags. Somehow Six Flags is shutting down too. I mean, and now the announcement came out this week that one of the credit rating agencies, Moody's, has downgraded Maryland from a triple bond rating to, I believe it's AA1, so it's one grade down. And of course, the governor is blaming the Trump administration for this downgrade. But I want you to hear what Ted Hampton, who's an analyst, had to say about this. Though state lawmakers closed a budget gap by increasing taxes and restraining expenses, further corrective steps may arise directly from federal funding cuts or the economic consequences of federal layoffs and other policy shifts, to which Maryland has a very high degree exposure. So what does that mean? All right, so Governor Wes Moore, who, I mean, you got to give it to him because he could very easily be like, yeah, no, we suck. Like, that's bad. We should not spend so much money. We should do better, right? Instead, he's like, Trump. It's Trump's fault. He's the reason that we're doing this because he's firing all of these federal agents or all these federal workers, and we've got a lot of federal workers. That is an argument. The issue is that our neighbor, Virginia, actually has more federal workers than we do, and guess what they kept? Their AAA rating. So just to be clear, like the bond ratings are very similar to like our credit ratings, right? So we used to be really good, like we were in the 800s, and now we're not anymore because we don't know how to manage money. Or as Wes Moore says, it's the Trump administration's fault. But here's my answer to that, okay? So on the one hand, yes, you can say that it's Trump's fault because he is firing all these federal workers. But like I said, Virginia somehow managed to keep their AAA rating, and they have more federal workers than we do. So how come theirs didn't go down? Oh, I know, because they don't have a crazy left-wing extremist Congress, or not Congress, a state delegation that is spending gobs of money that we don't have. So think about it this way. Let's say you have a small business, right? And you've got a bunch of different clients, right? And you lose one of your bigger clients. Okay, well, that could be a significant downturn for your business, right? Unless you were smart, unless you grew your other employees or your other customers, right? If you grew that customer base, then losing one of your bigger clients isn't going to be detrimental. It's something that you can come up. And then also, what if you have a savings account, right? Like, what if you actually were good with your money and didn't just spend above your means? Well, that would help offset that loss, right? Maryland hasn't done that. And as a matter of fact, Governor Westmore, when he came into office recently, said that one of the biggest issues with Maryland is that we have a very lazy economy. Lazy in the sense that we know that we've got all these federal workers and we just kind of expected that, the jobs will always be there. So it doesn't matter if other businesses leave because we tax them too much. We've always got the federal government. They're always going to be there paying that money. And, the federal government spends money like it's on fire. So why would we not expect them to keep bringing that revenue in? Oh, I know, because people got sick of it. Trump got elected and now they're making all these cuts. Well, that is unfortunate if you're going to have a lazy economy like Maryland. So on the one hand, yes, I get it. There is some truth to the fact that, it is affected by the fact that Trump is firing all of these federal workers. But we brought it on ourselves by being lazy. All right. If I lose my job and I have no savings and I'm still spending like it's going out of style, well, yeah, I would expect my credit rating to drop and I would expect bad things to start happening because it's not just so much the fact that, a source of revenue is gone. It's that we didn't prepare, that we didn't have any contingencies, any backup plans. So it's not fair to say that this is all Trump's fault. It's the Maryland legislature's fault. You're spending so much money. It's insane. And you know who's going to end up paying the penalty for this? It's just like if you, like I said, your credit rating goes down. What does that mean? Your credit rating goes down, your interest rates go up. Well, now you're paying more money on things that you shouldn't have had to, right? In the context of like government, same thing. When we go to sell our bonds, there's going to be a higher interest rate potentially. And guess who that affects? The taxpayers, because we're the ones that end up paying these things. So, all in all, we're a mess. But then, but then things got even worse. So, while we're dealing with our, Six Flags is closing, and Washington Commanders left, and we're not going to get this quantum computing. Then Governor Westmore had, I can't even say it with a straight face, but he held a press conference recently about one business that is bringing more jobs to Maryland. And I want you to hear this.
About how in the state of Maryland we want to create these partnerships between the Maryland State House and every corner of our society. We made our pitch. They listened. And you can see the direct line between those conversations and us being here today. We're 10 months later. We are here to write the next chapter in the partnership between the state of Maryland and McDonald's. And I'm proud to announce that this year, McDonald's will be creating an additional 4,000 jobs in the state of Maryland.
McDonald's. This is what you have for me. McDonald's. You know where that meme where I can't remember the actress name where she just kind of rolls her eyes and picks up her purse and walks away? That's how I feel. Like, are you joking? This is what you have for me. So we have lost the FBI headquarters, the Washington Commanders. Six Flags is closing down. Our credit rating is down, and you're going to have a press conference to tell me that McDonald's is going to hire 4,000 more workers in Maryland. Please stop. Please tell me that this is a joke. Like, if you're that's so stupid. I'm sorry, but I expect so much more from the state of Maryland, from Governor Westmore. What on earth possessed you to think that this was a good? Okay, no, let me pause here for a second because I think it's great that there are going to be more jobs available, right? I think it's great that McDonald's is going to be hiring 4,000 more Marylanders. My hope is that we understand, right, that McDonald's is a very respectable, very reputable job, right? It's great to do that, particularly as a transition. All right. We hold on, like, let's not settle for C's here. Okay. Let's put this job in the context of where it is. Now, if you are a manager or, a franchise owner of a McDonald's, that's great. But McDonald's and its day-to-day employee, like you're a line cook or you're flipping burgers, you're making fries, whatever it is, those are transitional jobs. Okay. And I, for one, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you that, yes, that should be your goal. Your goal should be to, be the head line cook at McDonald's. No, because in Maryland, here's the crazy thing. We are spending $4 billion a year on our world-class education system, this new Kerwin plan that we've been told will take our kids from, being like mediocre or not so great to being, superstars. It is a world-class education that we're spending $4 billion a year on so our kids can go work at McDonald's? Are you kidding me? It's insane. I don't understand what Wes Moore is trying to say with this. Am I supposed to be excited about this? And again, for anybody who works at McDonald's, like, look, my first job was at Dairy Queen. Okay. It was my first job for a reason. It was a transition job. It was a job that you get when you're in, high school or maybe college, to help make ends meet. It is not a job that can sustain you. And the governor, for him to come out here and act like, this is a job that, man, when you get out of college, you could be one of the first ones. You know what? You might even move up to being one of the people at the front, like, and by the way, if you've gone into a McDonald's recently, you know who takes your order now? A machine. A machine. Last time I was in there, I actually got a little bit of an eye roll from the girl because they have the machine there, that you're supposed to order from. And God bless young people, but maybe I'm getting older because I couldn't use the dang thing. And so I went up to the front, and I was like, "Hey, can I order?" And the lady was like, "There's a kiosk right there." I'm like, "Yeah, I can't use it." And so anyway, she ended up taking my order, but that's not the thing anymore. Okay, they're not wanting you to come to the front and make your order. They're wanting you to go to the kiosk and do it yourself, and then they'll prepare your food for you. So even those jobs, I think, are starting to go away. But my point with this is Wes Moore, I am so absolutely disappointed. And I think it is also a sign of how bad things are in Maryland that you're holding a press conference to announce that McDonald's is going to bring 4,000 new jobs. You know what that says to me? When I was in high school, like I was atrocious at math. I don't mean like just kind of bad. I mean I was really bad. And I was in this class that it was just me and another friend, and he was really good at math. So I basically had a tutor all to myself that entire year. And I remember when, it's like making a good grade in that class for me, like getting a 75 was like, oh my gosh, like that's awesome. Now, mind you, I did make it. I did end up making a good grade in the class. But my point is, like, if my friend, if he got like a 75 on the test, it would be like, oh, did you have a bad day? Did you not understand the material? If I got a 75, it would have been like, great job. Like, wow, you really got the material. And I feel like that's where we're at now. If we are praising this, it's because things are worse than I thought they were. Like this is not, this is not good, people. This is not where we're at. So in this instance, I think Wes Moore needs to really, really refocus and recalibrate on where the state is and how bad things really are. And maybe, just maybe, he should start standing up to the Democrats in the legislature when they're trying to spend tons and tons of money that we clearly don't have. Thanks for listening to the show, Straight Talk with your Ipsy Morgan, here on YouTube. Make sure that you like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And by the way, you can catch us on Spotify and iTunes. It's that time of year again. It is Supreme Court season. And this year, one of the topics is birthright citizenship. So oral arguments were this week on an executive order that President Trump signed when he first came into office, getting rid of birthright citizenship. After that, there was a nationwide injunction by a district court judge. And what's actually in front of the Supreme Court right now, what they're actually arguing about, isn't exactly the merits of whether or not birthright citizenship should be allowed. I'll talk about that in just a second. But instead, it's whether or not a judge, because there are 94 district court judges, 677, I believe, 677 district court judges, 94 district courts in the country. And the argument is that those folks, any one of them, should not be able to issue a nationwide injunction on anything like this. So that's what's actually in front of the court right now. It's not as sexy, I know, as like the whole birthright citizenship conversation. That's really what I think people want to know about. But I do think that the nationwide injunction thing is super interesting, especially because it's been something that I think the right has really latched onto lately, which is this idea that judges should not be able to just, say Trump is wrong and then block his policy throughout the entire country. Except I'll tell you that it doesn't always the argument tends to be very circular. So I hear that from Republicans when it's against their policies, but not the other way around. And I'm just telling you because I just want you to think about some things that may shift your opinion on this. So during the oral arguments, right? So that's when the Solicitor General, which is the government attorney, will come up and you got the 9 justices sitting there and they're asking questions. They're just like peppering him with questions. And, he's making his arguments, they're asking questions, and he basically just has to go back and forth. Um, and so different judges make different statements, right? And Justice Sotomayor actually brought this interesting question up about well, let's pretend that we're not talking about birthright citizenship. What if we were talking about gun control instead? Listen to this clip.
Who claim that there is absolutely no constitutional way to stop, put this aside, to stop a president from an unconstitutional act, a clearly, indisputably unconstitutional act, taking every gun from every citizen. We couldn't stop that.
I disagree with that for the reasons I've said, including the equitable tools.
No, because you said to us we'd have to wait until there was a final judgment. You're not sure you would respect the judgment of every circuit. You're not sure that you would respect even a final judgment of the Supreme Court because it only binds the parties before it.
Okay, so what if we weren't talking about birthright citizenship? What if we were talking about gun control? What if Kamala Harris had been elected and on day one she issued an executive order saying, everybody give me your guns. Guns are banned now in America. And what Justice Sotomayor is saying there is like, if that were to happen, are you saying that a district court judge in wherever couldn't say, hey, that is unconstitutional, but while that case is being heard, we're going to issue an injunction so that that allegedly unconstitutional executive order isn't in effect, right? Are you saying that a judge couldn't do that? And you can hear the Solicitor General there being like, no, that's not what I meant. But you can see when the shoe is on the other foot, how was this really about everybody doesn't like nationwide injunctions or just not in this one instance? So I bring that up because, and listen, maybe I should explain a little bit about what an injunction is. So let's assume, right, you've got a house and the state wants to put a highway through your house. Like, we got this new plan. Our engineer said this would be a great spot for it. So we're going to put a highway through your house. Sorry, right? And you're like, whoa, hey, that's not okay. And then you sue and you say, hey, they shouldn't be able to do this. And you got all your reasons right. Well, what's going to happen? Court cases are not fast. They're actually dreadfully slow. So while this court case is happening, I mean, it could be a year, it could be 2 years while this is happening. In the meantime, though, you would ask for an injunction saying, hey, they should not be able to take down my house and put a road through it because one, they're going to look at the likelihood of success. And two, is it going to cause irreparable harm? Well, you tell me. I think that your house being plowed over and, a road being put through it, that would be irreparable harm because once you do that, I can't get my house back. It's not like returning something, to Target where, that was a bad idea. I should return this item, give me my money back. It doesn't work that way. And so if there is the chance for irreparable harm, then they'll issue an injunction and saying, hey, look, wait, while the merits, right, while the actual case itself is being litigated, let's put a pause on this. And that's what's happened with this birthright citizenship case, where the judge was saying, you could have a whole lot of harm if all of a sudden Trump issues this executive order and it becomes effective, right? Then one, what are the logistics of it? How are hospitals going to handle it? And Justice Brett Kavanaugh actually asked about this. Like, okay, well, walk me through the day-to-day. Like, if you are in the hospital, you are a nurse, and a person comes in and they have a baby, how are you going to decide if this person is a U.S. citizen or not? What is the hospital supposed to do? What's the Social Security Administration supposed to do? Like, walk me through the logistics, right? And so they're saying in this case, like, there is a pause on that executive order while the case is being litigated. But the Trump administration is saying, hey, look, these judges should not be able to issue nationwide injunctions. So anyways, we'll get the decision on that probably, I don't know, it could be a couple of months before we get it. But I did want to walk you through real quick, what I think is probably most people's real concern here, which is, okay, never mind the injunctions. Like, tell me about birthright citizenship. What is it and why do we have it and is it going to go away? So just super quick, there are two types of ways that people get citizenship across I'm talking worldwide, right? Some countries like America do birthright citizenship, which is you're born here and you are not an enemy soldier, invading soldier, or the child of a diplomat. Then congratulations, ta-da, you are a U.S. citizen. The other one is actually the one that's practiced by European countries, which is if you have like blood ties to the country, so your parents are citizens, then guess what? Now you are a citizen. So that means that I could not go over to France, give birth in France, and my kids be French citizens. They would not. They would still be U.S. citizens. Ironically, this never gets brought up, but do you know? Is it somewhat odd to you that almost all North and South American countries, in Brazil, Guatemala, Jamaica, Mexico, all of them uh, birthright citizenship? You know who doesn't? European countries. You know why? Because this was actually an old vestige of colonization. The whole idea of birthright citizenship comes from colonization. That's why you have the Latin American countries. The New World, right, was the one who offered birthright citizenship, and the European countries didn't, because they were like, no, we want you guys to colonize America, the Americas, right? We want you to have babies there, and your kids will be citizens of those nations, of those territories. So it's actually, ironically, an old vestige of colonization. But I just want to talk with you real quick about this, because the idea that birthright citizenship is new is not. Like I said, it has roots back in colonization. But the whole idea is this. So after the Civil War, right, we had the passage of the 14th Amendment. Here's where everything goes awry. So the 14th Amendment says this: all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the U.S. and the state wherein they reside. The key word there is persons. Persons, not all citizens born here, but all persons born here. So back in 1898, so it's been a while, y'all. This is not a new issue. This has been a while. Back in 1898, there was this case. It was called Wong Kim Ark, Wong Kim Ark. And it was this 21-year-old Chinese guy. He was born here in the U.S. to Chinese parents. I believe it was in California. And at some point, they had gone back to China. And so he would go back and forth occasionally to visit his parents and then come back to the U.S. When he's 21 years old, he gets stopped in the harbor and they're saying, you can't come back. You are not a U.S. citizen. And he's like, what do you mean? I was born in America. I am a U.S. citizen. Let me paint the backdrop for you, okay? Let me just paint the picture for you. It is 1898, okay? Civil rights has not happened. There are no women on this court. It is all men, all white men, and there is a literal Chinese Exclusion Act in effect. So it's not like, oh, they're being kind of racist, they don't like me. There is a literal law on the books that excludes Chinese people, okay? This is how racist and how backwards things were at that time, right? Under that backdrop, he goes to the Supreme Court and he argues, I was born here in this country. The 14th Amendment says that all persons born or naturalized in the U.S. and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And guess what happened? 7-2 decision. He is a U.S. citizen. So I tell you that background because, yes, there will be I'm sure there will be an actual Supreme Court case about birthright citizenship, although what's in front of the court right now has to do with nationwide injunctions. But this case goes back to 1898. And I just want to paint you just the racist stuff that was going on back then, all right? And he still won his argument that he was a U.S. citizen. Again, because the 14th Amendment says persons and subject to the laws thereof. And what the court said at that time was like, hey, look, you are subject to the laws of the United States. He was born here and he was subject to our laws. His parents were not. His parents were Chinese nationals. They were born in China. They went back to China, but he was born here. He was subject to the laws. And that's really important because when I say like the people who this doesn't qualify, that don't qualify for this are the children of diplomats. So like if you're the ambassador of, I don't know, France, and you come over here and you have a baby, you're only here temporarily. You're an ambassador. You have a job to do, right? You're a diplomat. We know that you're here legally, but you're here for a specific purpose on behalf of your nation, right? Of France. So if you have a baby here, congratulations. We'll send you flowers, but your kid's not a US citizen. It's different for people who are are here illegally, which is why they have been able to obtain birthright citizenship. So anyways, that's for another day. That is another Supreme Court case, but I just wanted to give you that background as you hear these cases go through the courts and really think about, why these cases exist. And I hate this idea that people think that it's a new conversation. Y'all, this case was 1898. The 14th Amendment was after the Civil War in 1865. So this is nothing new. So the Trump administration trying to make the argument that, they could end this with executive order, that was never going to happen. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Straight Talk with your Ipsy Morgan. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. If you are one of our brand new Patreon subscribers, you get to stay for an extended segment. And this week we're going to talk about the Sean Combs trial. Why is it that everyone seemed to know, but nobody seemed to know what was going on in Hollywood? All right, stay tuned and see you guys next week.